Code Eve, the life force of the sacred orb, created the first two Bakugan, Genesis Dragonoid and Dragonoid. Their power was so devastatingly immense that it split the world in two. From Dragonoid's dimension, two new worlds emerged, Nethia and Gundalia. Meanwhile, Dragonoid's realm became Vestroia. However, the aftermath of the cosmic explosion shattered Vestroia into 6 distinct elemental worlds: Pyrus, Subterra, House, Darkus, Aquas, and Ventus. At the center of Vestroia lay 2 core entities, the Silent Core and the Infinity Core. The Infinity Core was the source of life and the embodiment of positive energy. The Silent Core held pure negative energy, corrupting everything in its path. Like yin and yang, these 2 cores maintained the balance of good and evil across the 6 worlds. Besides Genesis Dragonoid's realm, there was another dimension, the Doom Dimension. This was a prison for evil Bakugan who harmed others. Back in the day, Genesis Dragonoid personally banished the 10 Nonad Bakugan there: Betadron, Kodakor, Mutabrid, Spatterik, Stronk, Warden, Ballista, Tremblar, and Fury. All of them dreamed of escaping and exacting their revenge. Returning to Vestroia, aside from the elemental Bakugan, there were white Bakugan who, like Genesis Dragonoid, had no attribute. This anomaly occurred because they were born in the space between dimensions. The only known representatives of this race were Naga and Wyvern. Meanwhile on Earth, a scientist named Dr. Michael, living in his lab with his granddaughter Alice, accidentally created a dimensional portal system and stumbled into Vestroia. This experiment ripped open an interdimensional bridge. A flood of mysterious cards poured onto Earth, materializing into the hands of children worldwide, introducing humanity to the very first Bakugan. In the human world, Bakugan could only exist as small spheres. They could only assume their true massive forms on a battlefield that mirrored Vestroia's structure. Children quickly became obsessed with these cards and the toys that popped out of them. A few months later, the main character Dan and his friend Shun came up with the rules for the game Bakugan. They wrote the rules, global leaderboards emerged, and soon kids everywhere were brawling. Shun, a Ventus brawler, shut himself off from the world and abandoned his friends after his mother's passing, turning to ninja training. Right before she died, his mother gifted him Skyrus, who became his loyal partner and mentor. But what if we could teleport right into this moment to personally support him? You know, modern technology allows us to do just that in literally one click. Recently, I came across an amazing app called Polybuzz. It's an AI platform with over 40 million downloads worldwide and more than 20 million unique characters. It's the perfect place to unleash your creativity. You can create absolutely any chatbot you want, or chat with an already existing hero. As a diehard fan, I decided to test the system and personally recreated Shin Kazami from Bakugan right here.
I'm managing. She chose to return to her home. That's her decision.
I set up his personality, his secretive way of talking, and honestly, I got completely hooked. He replies exactly like he does in the show, keeping up his signature mysterious vibe and giving really cool, deep answers.
I respected them all for their strengths. But if you're asking about feelings, I didn't have time for that during battles.
You can also jump in and create your own favorite brawler. Click the link in the description box and the pinned comment to download Polybuzz. And to unlock premium features with the 3-day trial, just type my unique promo code Quasar56 directly into the search bar and on the app's homepage. Around this time, Naga, one of the white Bakugan, used the portals to reach the center of Vestroia to absorb the Silent Core, but he underestimated its power. He ended up shattering Vestroia instead. The negative energy corrupted countless Bakugan, while the Infinity Core fled to Earth and bonded with Naga's twin sister, Wyvern. Consumed by negative energy, Naga pursued her to Earth. Drago, a Pyrus Bakugan determined to stop this madness, followed him. He crashed right into the middle of a brawl, met Dan, and helped him win. Meanwhile, Dr. Michael returned to Earth but fell under the corrupting influence of the Silent Core, transforming into the villainous Hal G. His granddaughter, Alice, was also corrupted, splitting her personality to create Masquerade. Together, they became Naga's minions, plotting to seize the Infinity Core and conquer the world. To achieve this, Masquerade began breeding the ultimate Bakugan, Alpha Hydronoid. In his first encounter with Dan, Masquerade obliterated Dan's Bakugan and sent them to the Doom Dimension. Masquerade utilized the Doom card before battles. Whenever he won, the losing Bakugan were banished to the Netherworld forever. Drago explained to Dan that Bakugan weren't just toys, they were living sentient beings who desired peace. Horrified by the fate awaiting Bakugan in the Doom Dimension, Dan dedicated himself and his friends, the Battle Brawlers, to stopping Masquerade, officially partnering with Drago. Over the first few episodes, the other kids found their partners. Runo, the House Brawler, met Tigrera. Marucho, the Aquas Brawler, met Preyas. Julie bonded with the Subterra giant Gorum. Alice, completely unaware of her dark alter ego, refrained from choosing a Bakugan. The Brawlers eventually convinced Shun to join the team, and together they set out to find the Infinity Core, defeating Masquerade's underlings and convincing them to throw away their Doom cards. Through these battles, the Brawlers defeated the world's top players, triggering Drago's first evolution. Shortly after, they discovered that the Infinity Core was hidden inside Wyvern. After ensuring her safety, they shifted their focus to stopping Masquerade from completing his ultimate weapon. It turned out Masquerade's Hydronoid was feeding on the energy of every Bakugan sent to the Doom Dimension. After betraying his own minions and banishing their Bakugan, Hydronoid evolved, growing a second head and vastly outpowering Drago. Unaware of the power gap, Dan challenged Masquerade and ended up pulled into the Doom Dimension alongside Drago. Unable to bear the loss, his friends intentionally lost their battles to follow him. In the Doom Dimension, they met the legendary soldiers of Vestroia who had failed to protect the world from Naga. The soldiers tested the heroes, forcing each brawler to conquer their inner demons and deepen their bonds with their partners. The Brawlers passed, causing their Bakugan to evolve. Everyone except Drago, who could only attain his ultimate form after battling and defeating each of his friends. Wasting no time, Dan challenged Masquerade to a rematch. Drago defeated Alpha Hydronoid, shattering the Silent Core spell over Masquerade. The Brawlers finally discovered that Masquerade was actually Alice, and Hao Ji was her grandfather. Suddenly, they realized Naga had successfully absorbed the Silent Core and was invading Earth. A massive portal opened over the ocean. The heroes charged into Vestroia, defeating the hybrid Bakugan, overrunning the ruined world. Realizing Naga had bypassed them to attack Earth directly, the heroes rushed back, only to find Vestroia merging with Earth. Brawlers from all over the globe united to protect Wyvern and the Infinity Core. When Naga cornered his sister, Wyvern, determined to keep the power out of his hands, begged Drago to strike her down. Drago hesitated, but Wyvern intentionally stepped into his attack, passing the Infinity Core to him. This allowed Drago to wield the power of all 6 elements. Together, Dan and Drago destroyed Naga, absorbing the Silent Core and combining both cores within themselves. With the crisis averted, Drago used his ultimate power to recreate Vestroia, restoring it to its original unified form, New Vestroia, a paradise resembling Earth where Bakugan of all attributes could live in harmony. Sadly, this meant the Bakugan had to leave their human friends behind. The humans stayed behind while the Bakugan left for their new home, and Drago became the core of a new world. Meanwhile, on the distant planet Vestal, the inhabitants were already obsessed with Bakugan. The greedy king Xenoheld discovered New Vestroia right next to his planet. Seeing it as prime real estate for his colonization, Professor Clay developed dimension controllers to force the Bakugan back into their sphere forms. They built 3 controllers across Alpha City, Beta City, and Prince Hydrant's palace. Professor Clay settled in New Vestroia with his children, Mira and Keith. Keith was a brawler fascinated by his father's cruel experiments on Bakugan. He formed the Vexos, a specialized unit of 6 brawlers, and took on the persona of Spectra Phantom, dedicating himself to engineering the ultimate Bakugan. The Vexos included Spectra and his pirates Helios, Link, Volt, Mylene, Shadow Prove, and Gus Grav with his Subterra Vulcan. When Mira discovered that the Vestals had enslaved the Bakugan, she took her Bakugan, Wilda, fled from her father, and formed the Bakugan Resistance alongside House Brawler Baron and Darkest Brawler Ace. They allied with the old Battle Brawlers Bakugan but failed their initial assault, resulting in Tigrera, Gorum, and Preyas being captured for Prince Hydrant's bronze statue collection. As the core of Vestroia, Drago watched this helplessly. He implored the legendary soldiers for help, and they granted him a physical body. However, this came at the cost of his power, leaving him significantly weaker than during his final fight with Naga. Drago teleported to Earth to recruit Dan. Marucho followed them back into the fray. Upon arriving in New Vestroia, Dan met Mira and learned of the crisis. Dan and Marucho joined the resistance, with Marucho partnering with Aqua's Elfin. Shun, who had been accidentally sucked into New Vestroia through a portal, also joined after partnering with Ventus Ingram. Together, they clashed with Spectra and defeated him for the first time. This arc introduced Bakugan traps, uniquely shaped combat tools that, unlike standard Bakugan, couldn't speak. Meanwhile, Professor Clay created the first cybernetic Bakugan, Ventus Altair, which the Resistance successfully destroyed along with the Alpha City controller, freeing a massive chunk of the Bakugan population. Following this, the Vexos split the Resistance up. Some went to Earth, while others stayed behind. Dan showed his new friends around his hometown, but Spectra and Gus tracked them down. In a brutal battle, Helios defeated Drago, and Drago fell into Spectra's hands. To reclaim Drago, Apollinaire, one of the legendary soldiers, intervened and helped Dan win him back. Mira later discovered Spectra was her brother Keith, and briefly rejoined the Vexos as a double agent, stealing her father's cybernetic Bakugan to pass to Dan and Drago. However, the catch was that Spectra and Helios still possessed a secondary, identical set of that technology. When the Resistance launched a raid on Prince Hydrant's palace, they successfully liberated their old partners. Drago and Helios engaged in a massive battle using mechanical Bakugan, but the fight cut short without a clear victor due to the palace's self-destruction sequence. The palace and the final controller blew up, freeing all Bakugan. Spectra and Gus defected from the Vexos, escaping on their own ship. King Xenoheld executed his backup plan. He challenged the 6 legendary soldiers to steal their elemental energies and activate the Bakugan termination system. Just before their defeat, the soldiers passed their energies to the Resistance Bakugan, triggering their evolutions. Unfortunately, the heroes couldn't withstand the Vexos' new mechanical Bakugan and slowly lost their elemental energies to the machine. Xenoheld activated the system. Realizing time was running out, Drago teamed up with Helios to destroy the machine directly. When their attack failed, Drago took the system's core into deep space and absorbed all the energy and accidentally evolved into Helix Dragonoid. With his new power, Drago finally defeated Helios in a fair fight, prompting Spectra and Helios to officially join forces with the Resistance. Driven to desperation, Xenoheld constructed the Alternative Weapon System, a moon-sized fortress capable of obliterating entire planets. The Vexos gradually abandoned their king, but Prince Hydrant tracked the defectors down and eliminated them one by one. During this time, Marucho developed Bakugan Interspace, a virtual reality simulator where brawlers could fight safely without damaging the real world. Suddenly, Professor Clay and Spectra intercepted phantom data from deep space containing the DNA profiles of new Bakugan just as powerful as Drago. The Resistance launched a final assault on Xenoheld's base. Utilizing battle gear and tight teamwork, they destroyed the alternative from the inside out. Professor Clay chose to stay behind, dying in the explosion. Before his death, the professor realized the phantom data had originated from an interstellar war between 2 planets, Nethia and Gundalia. These were the exact 2 worlds spawned from Dragonoid's dimension. The Brawlers said goodbye to their Vestal allies and returned to Earth, where Shun and Marucho took digital clones of Nethia and Bakugan discovered in the Phantom Data, Ventus Hoctor, and Aqua's Aquimos. Inside Bakugan Interspace, the heroes met Ren Crawler, a Gundalian undercover agent who helped them optimize the virtual world. 2 years passed. Dan moved to a new city, met a new friend Jake, and promised to teach him how to brawl, and Marucho gave him a copy of a Nethian Bakugan named Cordum. By this time, Bakugan Interspace had gone global, allowing kids from all over the world to log in. Dan, Shun, and Marucho held the top 3 spots in the world rankings. Ren lied to the Brawlers, claiming his home planet had been invaded by malicious Nethians, and the Brawlers believed him. However, Princess Fabia of Nethia arrived and exposed the truth. Emperor Barodius of Gundalia was the actual aggressor, seeking to steal the power of Nethia's sacred orb. The Brawlers realized that Ren was a traitor and a deceiver, and he left the team. Fabia gifted the Brawlers the real, sentient versions of Hoctor, Aquimus, and Cordum, while she fought using House Aeronaut. The Brawlers fought off the Emperor's agents infiltrating Interspace, who were actively utilizing a new technology called battle gear. Soon, a Nethian knight arrived on Earth with his Bakugan, Neo Zipzam, who held the element, a fragment of the sacred orb capable of creating life. Zipzam passed the element to Drago, triggering his evolution into Lumino Dragonoid. The Brawlers traveled to Nethia and were knighted as Castle Knights. Meanwhile, paranoia and betrayal fractured the Gundalian ranks. Barodius discovered that his commander, Nurzak, was plotting against him. Barodius defeated Nurzak, but the Sacred Orb sensed the danger and warped Nurzak into the space between dimensions, saving his life. When Barodius launched a full-scale invasion of Nethia, Ren finally defected to the Brawler's side. His partner, Darkest Lionheart, unleashed a forbidden sealed power, awakening the guardian of the Sacred Orb, Dragonoid Colossus. Following these events, Kazarina, a ruthless Gundalian scientist, orchestrated a plot to kidnap and brainwash Jake. Meanwhile, Dragonoid Colossus teleported Dan and Drago into the interdimensional void, where they reunited with the rescued Nurzak. The Guardian tested Drago, triggering his evolution into Blitz Dragonoid, before officially joining the Brawlers. Together, they attempted a counter-invasion of Gundalia but failed to rescue Jake. Kazarina lured Dan into a trap, extracted Drago's DNA, and grafted it onto Darak, causing him to evolve. After this, Kazarina was named the Emperor's right hand. The Emperor mobilized all his legions for a final assault on Nethia. In the middle of the chaos, Kazarina was taken out by her own ally, Gil, who was just completely done with her drama. Basically, she was heavily getting in his way. Upon discovering this, the Emperor killed Gil and his Bakugan. Amidst the chaotic final battle, the rest of the Emperor's inner circle and Dragonoid Colossus were also wiped out. Darak and the Emperor defeat everyone and break through to the Sacred Orb. The Sacred Orb tells them about their special origins and that partners are connected through the life code. Just like Dan and Drago, Barodius and Darak possess a switch code. Only when they unite can the Bakugan unlock its full potential. The rivals clash, and Dan and Drago emerge victorious. Distraught, Barodius approaches the orb and tries to absorb the power of the Sacred Orb, but cannot withstand the strain. Drago becomes Titanium Dragonoid. Gundalia and Nethia make peace, and the Brawlers return to Earth. On Earth, Shun and Marucho once again change their Bakugan to Aqua's Trister and Ventus Talion. Bakugan Inner Space also becomes available to the residents of Earth, Nethia, and Gundalia. New modes appear in the virtual world, and new battle gear called Bakunano is introduced. Sometime later during one of the battles, Drago loses control of his power and summons a gigantic Mechtogan that completely destroys the arena. That same night, Dan begins having nightmares about the Magmail and Razonoid. Because of these dreams, Dan gradually starts losing his sanity and distances himself from his friends. Meanwhile, Magmail's followers, led by Anubius and Cellon, overshadow the Brawlers with their popularity, causing fans to turn away from the Battle Brawlers. Chaos erupts in Inner Space as many players begin using Chaos Bakugan received from Magmail, a monster who is gathering power in his lair in order to be reborn. At the same time in New Vestroia, Dan and Drago train to control their powers and with great difficulty manage to subdue the Mechtogan Zenton and Zenton Titan. Dan returns to Earth, but after hearing enough accusations from his friends, he quarrels with them, and due to the unrest, Inner Space is forced to shut down. Meanwhile, Chaos Bakugan attack Gundalia. Dan and Drago attempt to stop them but are defeated by Razonoid. Marucho and Shun reconcile with Dan as they prepare to defend their world. A massive dark moon appears above Earth, from which the villains send their strongest Bakugan to destroy the planet. The Brawlers struggle to hold back Magmail's forces, but at the last moment, the Vestals arrive, led by Spectra, who has switched his attribute to Darkest along with his Infinity Helios. Spectra single-handedly destroys several Mectogans, while Dan and Drago infiltrate the villain's lair. The partners realize that Magmail and Razonoid are none other than Barodius and Darak. Dan and Drago awaken the power of the switch code and gain access to their final evolution, Fusion Dragonoid. After Magmail's defeat, many Bakugan from New Vestroia move to Earth and together with humans build Bakugan City, where both races can live in peace. All battles move to street arenas, and a rising star appears above the top brawlers, Guns and his Reptak. Their old ally Mira also rejoins the Battle Brawlers. During the final match of the Bakugan City tournament, Dan and Drago face Reptak and Guns, but the battle is interrupted by the appearance of 4 Mechtogan. Now remember the beginning of our video, where we talked about Genesis Dragonoid and how he sent the 10 Nonet Bakugan to the Doom Dimension? One of those Nonet Bakugan, Fury, evolved. Through his evolution, he gained the ability to create Mectogans just like Drago. Fury creates 4 Mectogans, Cordogon, Slicerak, Exo Striker, and Mandibore. Believing themselves superior, these creatures destroy their creator and then invade Earth. The heroes fight them, and at a critical moment, Dan and Drago summon a new Mechtogan, far more powerful than any before, Dragonoid Destroyer, who temporarily defeats the evil Mechtogan. However, the Brawlers soon realize that their new ally Guns has also disappeared. and Reptak is forced to temporarily join the Battle Brawlers. Suddenly, Wise Man enters the scene, a mysterious figure who worked alongside the No-Net Bakugan. Long ago, Drago's ancestor Genesis Dragonoid banished the No-Nets to the Doom Dimension. Now united with Wise Man, they seek revenge on Genesis' descendant, Drago himself. Around the same time, Runa arrives in Bakugan City. Together with Mira, she equips the Brawlers with Baku suits, special gear that pushes their power beyond normal limits. As the battles against Wise Man continue, the Brawlers begin to notice something strange. His movements, his tactics, everything feels familiar. Slowly, a disturbing theory forms. Wise Man might be Guns. The truth, however, is even darker. Wise Man is actually Cordogon, a Mechtogan who disguised himself as Guns. The real Guns was captured, his energy drained so Cordogon could revive his fallen brothers and fuse them into a single monstrous entity, Mechtavius Destroyer. Even among the No-Net Bakugan, doubts about Wise Man begin to spread. The Brawlers attempt to draw the Mechthogans into open battle, but the merged creature delivers an ultimatum to Earth: destroy all Bakugan or watch the planet fall. Guns finally awakens and escapes Cordogon's control. Donning Wise Man's armor, he rallies the remaining No-Net Bakugan and leads a desperate assault on Mechtavius Destroyer. The outcome is brutal. Nearly all the No-Nets are destroyed and the survivors are cast back into Doom Dimension. Guns, No-Net Bakugan, and the Brawlers were sent to the Doom Dimension by Mechtavius Destroyer. Inside the Doom Dimension, Betatron, one of the No-Net Bakugan, challenges Drago. He is defeated, but the battle changes him. Betatron admits his mistakes and chooses to stand with the Brawlers against Mechtavius Destroyer. While Drago and Betatron attempt to form a plan, disaster unfolds in the real world. Mechtavius Destroyer ravages Bakugan City, wipes out most of humanity, and brings New Vestroia to the brink of extinction. Realizing they are too late, Professor Wharton proposes a final, desperate solution: a time jump launched directly from the Doom Dimension. The No-Net Bakugan sacrifice themselves, using their remaining power to send the Brawlers back into the past. Even after altering the timeline, victory remains out of reach. Mechtavius Destroyer is still unstoppable until the very last moment. Dragonoid Destroyer calls upon the strength of every Bakugan on Earth, unleashing his true power and reaching 100%. The truth is finally revealed. Dragonoid Destroyer is the very first Bakugan, Genesis Dragonoid himself, drawing power from the bond between humans and Bakugan. With that unity, he defeats Mechtavius Destroyer and leaves Dan and Drago with his final words. The heroes return home. Drago eventually defeats Reptak in the rescheduled tournament final, and the Brawlers throw a celebration for the two champions. But they never arrive. Only Shun notices them standing quietly at the harbor. Dan and Drago sit sailing a small boat, disappearing beyond the horizon, knowing that wherever they go, new adventures will always await. And with that, the story of the Battle Brawlers comes to an end.